outlast the superstore it came from. People have counted on Sears, however, for over 100 years, so we'll be there when you need us. And now you can count on great values like America's largest usable capacity Kenmore washer and matching dryer, or this Kenmore dishwasher with China wash and 3-level spray, now $50 off, only at Sears.
It's going to be one of those nights with funny lady Roseanne Arnold and the Buffalo Bills' Jim Kelly on the next Arsenio Hall Show.
Tonight at 11:30 on Fox 29. Tonight on Hard Copy. The snowy silence of a college campus, shattered by a gunman. He singled out the women, and before he was done, 14 were shot dead in cold blood, while the men watched helplessly, a nightmare that has haunted them every night since.
When the panic is started, you can't really stop it.
This policeman, called to the massacre, would find the body of his own daughter. They're all victims of the man who hated women.
Plus, Cindy Adams, Hollywood Confidential. The porn stars who hit it big behind the scenes with the in crowd.
They're Oscar winners every night.
The secret scandal of the woman who may take the crown from Mrs. America.
She makes her look like Betty Crocker.
And Cindy Crawford strips down and stops traffic.
She's showing up in her underwear.
Tonight on Cindy Adams, Hollywood Confidential.
This is Hard Copy for Thursday, February 13th, 1992. Hello and welcome, I'm Barry Nolan. Tonight's top story, the vengeance of the man who hated women. He walked into a classroom, he told all the men to leave, and then he did the worst. He selectively executed the women. Our Doug Bruckner has the story that has haunted every man who escaped every night since.
Montreal, the largest city in Quebec, where the license plate reads Je me souviens, French for I remember. And one thing Montrealers will always remember is this. They call it the Montreal Massacre. It was a Friday in December, the last day of the semester at the École Polytechnique, the engineering school at the University of Montreal. A day that's seared not only in the memories of people who live in Quebec, but in the memories of all Canadians.
This is the sort of thing for us that happens sort of south of the border. It is not something that happens in Canada, period.
Another thing Canadians will always remember is this. The white caskets of 14 young women, the nation's best and brightest, cut down as they stood on the threshold of possibility, victims in the most violent battle of the sexes.
There's just nothing you could do with in front of a person with a gun.
It was snowing lightly. It was actually very nice snow. I remember it was like very, very white. It looked like a Christmas card.
But the cold and the snow were nothing compared to the chill to come that night, the night a man named Marc Lapine came to school. As soon as he walked into a classroom on the 3rd floor, the other students there knew he had not arrived to study engineering.
He entered a classroom and he was, brandishing this semi-automatic weapon, and invited the men, all of the male students in the classroom, to leave the classroom.
At first, the other students thought it was some kind of end-of-semester prank, but then he let them know he was serious, dead serious.
To emphasize his particular point, and I think get the message across, there was a couple of gunshots that were fired in the ceiling.
Then Lapine began to divide up the students, men to one side, women to the other.
The males more or less slowly headed over to the side of the classroom and started actually exiting the classroom.
Some of the men thought they were being taken hostage, but then they got into the hallway. They heard the gunfire in the classroom.
He screamed out in French the equivalent of, "You're all a bunch of feminists."
Albert Nierenberg is a newspaper columnist for the Montreal Gazette. He was in the city room when the call came over the police radio.
When you listen to police radio, you think it's a hoax, you think it's a crazy guy. We didn't think it was a big deal.
When he arrived, there was much activity, but it still seemed fairly routine.
This whole parking lot virtually was full of ambulances, and the lights were flashing, and the whole area turned red because of the flashing lights.
Pierre Leclerc was communications boss of the Montreal police. In most cases, the boss would not be the one talking to the media, but this was shaping up into a big deal.
The first thing I did when I arrived there, I met the journalists. But at that time, I had not yet talked to this officer inside. This is the reason why I told them, just let me go in and I'll come back and tell you what's going on. You know?
He told reporters, as far as he knew, I don't remember the number, it was a small number, 2 or 3 people were dead. Some people were injured. He did not know the number, and everyone was shocked. Up until then, we thought it was that it was a minor story, that it was maybe a crazy guy making threats. It happens often.
Officer Leclerc had his say and went back inside the building to find out more.
And it came out later and told us the number may be higher, or maybe 6, or maybe 9. And at that point, we were devastated. And then he went back in and we never saw him again.
But the horror the reporter imagined was nothing compared to what Officer Leclerc was about to find. For Marc Lepine had carried out the most terrible revenge against women.
He initiated almost a systematic execution and firing upon the students that were in the classroom.
And Officer Leclerc was about to make the most devastating discovery of all. His own child, Maurice, was one of the victims.
I went up there and I just turned the corner of a corridor then, and I saw my girl there, my daughter there.
But the officer saw what happened inside and what drove the killer. That's next. And a little later, another steamy scandal for the Mrs. America pageant. Cindy Crawford strips down, and porn stars mix in with Hollywood's finest. All on Cindy Adams' Hollywood Confidential.
Maryland, the last word, a 3-day television event, starts Monday. Back in a moment with more Hard Copy.
They are timeless classics. They are timeless classics. Always on WPEN, only on WPEN. 950 WPEN, the station of the stars.
Tonight, get in the mood for love with a night of romance hosted by Al and Peg Bundy.
Please, somebody shoot me.
First, Bart plays Cupid to his teacher.
Dear Edna.
Yours is a butt that won't quit.
The Simpsons. Then, Drexel's ex-wife comes to visit on Drexel's Class and on 90210.
You gotta be at least 17 years old to do what we are gonna do tonight.
Plus, Love Bundy style all night long tonight on Fox.
The Gilardi family, all 3,000 of us, offer your family terrific savings with double coupons and prices like 1/3 off all varieties of Healthy Choice frozen foods. Cantaluna spaghetti or ziti, 5 1-pound boxes for $2, and Cottony Soft Cottonelle bath tissue 4-roll package just 79 cents.
The difference is our family pride.
Hello, Mike, it's me. Back in town and headed for the ball, yeah. Taco Bell. Honey, I got a craving. Why don't you meet me there? Taco Bell. That Taco Bell taste starts at 69 cents. That one and only taste. How long has it been? Got a craving, gotta run for the
From Hollywood Pictures, it will rock you, it will shock you, it will knock you out of your seat. The hand that rocks the cradle. Don't miss the fun. See it and get rocked at a theater near you. Rated R. Now playing.
Family works for us.
And it can work for you.
On
He walked into a classroom and began to kill women only. He spared the men, but left them with a lingering nightmare. Already, 3 suicides have resulted, and a policeman knows he will never recover from what he found at the scene. Doug Bruckner continues the story of the man who hated women.
It was the largest massacre in Canadian history and one of the most disturbing crimes of the century. Mark Lapine, a would-be student of engineering, walked into a crowded classroom and divided the students according to sex. The men went into the hall, ready for the worst. And then they heard the screams and the gunfire.
After he asked the men to leave the classroom, and eventually started to flow out, he fired a couple of shots in the ceiling and screamed out in French the equivalent of, "You're all a bunch of feminists, and I hate feminists." And then he initiated almost a systematic execution.
Mark Lapine had lined the women up against the wall and began to kill.
He was shooting at everybody. He was shooting everywhere. He was not selective in his killing. But afterward, that's only afterward that we knew, maybe at midnight, we knew that it was only girls.
He fired until his gun was empty. Special bullets. Bullets designed to rip a person apart.
It was high, it's high velocity, and once it hits the bone, it just, it goes all over, yeah. You know, the damage inside was just incredible.
14 women would be dead before he stopped and turned the gun on himself.
For some of the girls who got killed, it was their last day. They were graduating, and it was their last day of school.
But to no one was this perverse spree more cruel than Officer Pierre Leclerc. The top spokesman for the Montreal police walked in to survey the carnage and found the body of his own daughter.
Just turned the corner of a corridor then, and I saw my girl there, my daughter there, lying on the back, and she was on the stage, you know, where the desk is, and in front of the classroom. Yes, I recognized her because of the clothes she was wearing, because she was wearing the same clothes that I saw her the Sunday before. You know.
As the bodies were being hauled off, and as the story of what went on inside began to come out, the first question was why? Why would someone do this?
12 of the 14 women were students of engineering, and that was why they died, because this guy was after women, and they wanted to kill women for the fact that they were studying in a non-traditionally traditionally man profession.
When you separate men from the women and you shoot women because they're women, it is violence against women.
Who was Mark Lapine? And what kind of society could produce a man who hates women so much he would line them up at random and shoot them dead? His neighbors in a working-class section of Montreal began with that same frustrating description we always seem to hear about the most horrible criminals. He was a quiet man. He never got into trouble.
He didn't seem crazy at all.
In many ways, Mark Lapine wasn't different than any regular Jack on the street.
But the answers began to surface in his past. A couple of years before the massacre, Lapine tried to join the Canadian Army, but he was turned away. They said he was asocial. Then he tried to get into engineering school.
He had, at one point, aspired to get into the Polytechnique, that particular school, aspired to, I guess, pursue studies in engineering, and for one reason or another, he was refused.
Before the families could even bury the victims, a letter arrived at the local newspaper, a letter written by Mark Lapine before beginning his murderous assaults. His words are the clearest clue to the emotions that drove him to murder.
The feminists always have a talent to enrage me. They want to keep the advantages of women while trying to grab those of the men.
This was a crime against women. It was motivated by an anti-feminist backlash.
Feminists have always ruined my life.
There's a guy who said he was coming to kill women, and that's what he did.
Even if the mad killer epithet will be attributed to me by the media, I consider myself a rational, erudite person.
When it was over, Officer Leclerc could not return to the Montreal Police Department and took a job outside Quebec City as deputy chief in Sainte-Foy.
I never thought that in my life I would be so much affected by something, you know. Because when you have children, when you raise children, you never think that something like this will happen.
One of Maurice LeClaire's classmates was Anne Marie Edwards. Her mother was home that night when she got the news.
She had just the week previously, had just made the ski team, and she was very proud of that.
And 2 years after her death, the memory of Anne Marie still haunts her family home. Her Christmas stocking still hangs over the fireplace. Her picture is displayed everywhere. And sewn into a pillow on her bed, a lock of her hair.
I have this cup here that I just took a picture of, sort of stamp on. I just have breakfast with her every morning, just to keep me going.
And Anne Marie's mother, Suzanne, has done more. For 2 years, she has fought for gun control laws. Just a few weeks ago, Canada passed strict gun control legislation in memory of the 14 who died that day. A memorial that allows all Canadians to say, "I remember." A memorial to the victims of the man who hated women.
Awful tragedy. Now, Cindy Adams, Hollywood Confidential. Porn stars go Hollywood. And the newest Mrs. America sex scandal, that's next.
Alka-Seltzer Plus goes to the Arctic Circle, where the toughest colds live.
Alka-Seltzer Plus takes care of the aches, the runny nose. Alka-Seltzer Plus has done exactly what I've needed it to do. It does the job.
Alka-Seltzer Plus, tough medicine for tough winter colds.
If your face were square, shaving would be simple. If your face were flat, any razor would do. But your face has curves. You need the revolutionary Schick Tracer, the first razor with a blade that flexes to trace every curve on your face. Compared to other razors, Tracer puts more of the blade edge against your skin. For real faces, just like yours. Tracer from Schick traces every curve on your face.
Now back pain doesn't have to ruin another night's sleep. Introducing new Doan's PM. Doan's starts with a unique pain reliever these brands don't have, then adds a second ingredient to help you sleep. New Doan's PM for nighttime back pain.
Who do you answer to?
For 50 years, I've answered to her. And I've answered to him.
At Murray's, we answer to you.
At Murray's, the quality of the food is excellent, and the prices are great.
Products like Tasty Cake 12-pack snacks stock up for just $1.29 each. Morton's Pot Pies, turkey, beef, or chicken are on sale. Get 3 for 89 cents. And we're featuring Tampa-made cooked salad shrimp, only $4.99 for a 1.5-pound bag.
We answer to you. Stop in the name of love.
Sing along to Philadelphia's Oldies station, Oldies 98, WOGL.
This Valentine's Day, find out why falling in love can sometimes be deadly. Richard Gere, Kim Basinger, Final Analysis, rated R. Now playing.
Star Trek The Next Generation, weeknights at 12:30 on Fox 29.
It's Hollywood Confidential time, and here's Cindy.
Hello, kiddies. Welcome to Hollywood Confidential. Tonight we're full of beauty queens, Hollywood royalty, and those secret porn stars the real stars keep stashed in their limos.
It's the whole fantasy of going out with a porno star. It's like kind of an exciting thing.
In the golden age of the movies, it was a major no-no if a big star was caught messing with a stag film queen. But that doesn't turn any heads these days.
It's difficult enough as it is to have a relationship in Hollywood and being both in the entertainment industry.
Charlie Sheen was hot and heavy with Ginger Lynn Allen, one of the porniest porn stars of all time. Friends say they were talking, well, whispering, marriage, and Ginger landed small roles in some real movies. Let me tell you, while stars like Ginger Lynn and Tracy Lords may have landed small roles in mainstream movies, Hollywood is a long way away from putting an adult film star in a mainstream leading role. What there is an unwritten rule with movie stars here. You can stay out late, you can party with the big boys, but when the sun comes up, they share the spotlight with no one. But they do provide royal diversions. Adult movie diva Terry Weigel made international headlines when she and Prince Albert showed up in these photographs, complete with details of a king-size rendezvous.
He was like trying to get my clothes off.
Although she was an exotic dancer, not an X-rated movie queen, Kiefer Sutherland's romance to pretty woman Julia Roberts hit a dead end when he got mixed up with a stripper named Raven.
It was very romantic.
And now there's a new X-rated star working her way into celebrity circles. Her name is Savannah.
Well, I don't like to date normal people because normal people are just too boring to me. I can't handle it. You know, the 9-to-5ers are just not my cup of tea.
At age 21, Savannah already realizes making adult movies ain't gonna get her into real movies. But that doesn't matter. She's gone from dating middle-aged rocker Greg Allman when she was only 16 to Billy Idol and Axl Rose, and then landed with MTV comedian Pauly Shore.
Come here, honey. He wanted me to stop doing movies, and it just wasn't right for me, you know.
Now, you remember that flap over Mrs. America? The accused welfare cheat who's a step...
That's Martha's ex-husband, Brad. When he realized his ex-wife might claim the crown using his last name, he contacted Hard Copy to let us know her tiara is tainted. He even gave us some naughty little love letters. Brad says another man faxed them to Martha in Moscow. That's where the pageant took place. You know, that pageant where she was pretending to be a happily married homebody?
I found out that we were going to get a divorce right before the pageant. I was really upset. I was bitter. I was outraged.
We tracked down the first runner-up. Martha was at her dental hygienist job, cleaning teeth to a beauty pageant shine. We asked about her alleged infidelity during that pageant.
After I was done and our marriage was over and back from Russia, I did start seeing somebody, but it was nothing. I mean, it wasn't even initiated before that time.
Mrs. California.
Okay, but why did she go through with a beauty pageant, Mrs. America no less, when she knew her marriage wouldn't survive the rain?
That's something I worked hard for. I wanted to be Mrs. California, and I wanted to be Mrs. America, but unfortunately, when it came down to it, I knew that even though if I went back there with just the hope of doing the best I could, but I did not want to win.
You did not want to win. You're standing there between you and Jill?
No, I prayed to God. I did. I said, when Jill and I were standing there, and I don't know if you can see the tape, but I was a very happy first runner-up.
Well, Mrs. America is Mrs. California.
So you had no intention then of keeping the crown?
I was not going to stay in a marriage just for the title. No.
Looks like we better start tracking down that second runner-up. Or maybe those pageant people should just change the rules. Marriage ain't what it used to be.
She used our marriage to get ahead.
And speaking of beauty queens, there ain't a thing confidential about Mrs. Richard Gere. Cindy Crawford, she's showing up all over Europe in her underwear. Trust me. And it's getting the icy Norwegians hot under their fur collars. It's posters, see, an ad campaign in which Ms. Mole is not exactly dressed for the Nordic chill.
You know, I mean, it's work.
Those prudish Norwegians are tearing posters down and covering them up. They're just too sexy. But want to know the real reason? Check out the coverage on the Norway Evening News.
Hits from Team USA's hockey encounter with Finland. And New Jersey's Donna...
Weinberg,